Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Julie Chan Show, where passion meets purpose. Today we have Alyssa Andrick on the show. Miss World America is here to talk about her passion and how it is lighting up her purpose. Alyssa, you have accomplished so much. You are so young, beautiful, and vibrant.
Thank you.
So many wonderful things. Tell us how it all began for you. You started out as a young girl in acting.
I did. So, first of all, I have two amazing parents who have been supportive of every endeavor I have ever wished to take. So, originally, when I was a little girl, that started with acting and singing. I started with singing lessons when I was just 5 years old because I had gone to a local production of the musical Annie. And I told my mom, I said, I want to do that. I want to be on stage. So I started singing lessons. And then with 2 years, I was on stage in a production of Annie myself. From there, it pretty much catapulted to where I began doing acting and singing in both San Francisco and Los Angeles. Then I went to college and pivoted a little bit, but all of that experience has really helped me a lot and helped me get to where I am today as Miss World America.
So, for so many of us who are parents, we listen to our kids and they will have whimsical, fun ideas. They'll go to a production of Annie like you did and say that they want to be on stage. How was it that you were so sure? How did you explain to your parents, like, no, this is what I want to do? Or were they just like really open, signed you up, and you took it from there?
Well, ever since I was really little, I always had, my karaoke machine and singing around the house. I actually learned how to read by having the lyrics sheet to Barney songs during road trips. And we would play Barney songs in the car, and I would be trying to read along and sing along with the lyrics. So I'd always had an interest for music and a passion for just being, out there and performing, I guess. Also, I'm very, we could call it athletically challenged. So we know that sports were not going to be part of my life from a very early age.
Well, you were focused. You were focused on singing and performing, and you also love to dance.
I do. I started dancing when I was 2 years old.
Oh my goodness. That's
That
incredible.
that was more my parents putting me in that for sure. At 2 years old, you don't really know what you want to do, but I really liked it. I was a ham on stage. I was one of those little girls always, trying to smile and do the biggest movements I could because I just loved performing.
And as you went on in your life and you continued to follow this passion of performance and singing and dancing and being on stage, then what happened next for you? You started entering some pageants, and what was that like?
I did. I began pageantry when I was 13 years old. In eighth grade is when I really started taking it seriously. So I competed for the Miss California's Outstanding Teen Program, which is part of Miss California and Miss America. It's the teen version. I came in as a little eighth grader, barely knowing anything about what I was doing, and I got first runner up in the entire state. So I all of a sudden realized, oh wow, this is something that I'm actually, pretty good at and could have a future in. Every year I kept trying and trying, and 3 years I was also first runner up. So I came so close to that crown of Miss Teen California, but never quite got there, which was really discouraging. However, once I went to college, I realized that all of the skills that I learned in pageantry are, really what helped get me to college and get me to where I was at that time. That's why I decided to continue pageantry after I graduated.
And during your teen years, to be first runner up 3 years in a row, I'm sure was difficult. But as you look back, what was the biggest learning experience?
Perseverance, to never stop trying, to always just take everything lightly and in strides, because you're not always going to be someone's favorite. You're not always going to be the one that they want to pick. It's very subjective. But I learned throughout that time that not only that perseverance is going to take me far, but I also learned poise and speaking skills and the importance of community service. And those are skills that I take with me to my day, whether it's as Miss World America or even in my career.
And fast forward to Miss World America. When you decided to try out for that, talk about that experience and how you won the crown.
This was the first year that Miss World America was virtual. It was during the pandemic. It was back in October, and I was just so bored during quarantine, as so many of us were. I felt like my purpose had been missing. I felt like I wasn't really being fulfilled. I was just, doing my work on my laptop and then trying to work out in my apartment. And I felt like there was something more that I could be doing to be helping the world and helping the causes that I care about. When I saw the entry form for Miss World America, I thought, why not? Miss World is the world's largest and longest running international beauty pageant. And here I was for an opportunity to be able to represent the United States, to be able to represent my Beauty with a Purpose platform, which is Alzheimer's Advocacy. And I took the plunge, put all of my time and effort into it, and it ended up paying off.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And why Alzheimer's advocacy? Why is Alzheimer's important to you?
Alzheimer's is affected by 6 million people here in the United States, and there's over 15 million more caregivers who are also affected. My family were caregivers for my grandma, Mary Fran, who had the disease throughout my entire life. And growing up as a child of Alzheimer's was incredibly difficult. I went from, my grandmother never remembering my name to all of a sudden she would have fits of rage and be acting out more emotionally when she came to live with us. And then the disease progressed to where she could no longer walk by herself. She could no longer speak. She could no longer eat by herself. And Alzheimer's really took over her body. It was terrifying. As a little girl, I knew that there was more that I could do and to use my speaking skills, to use the skills I learned on stage to be an activist for all the other young caregivers out there.
Yeah. And regarding, your real passion for this and becoming Miss World America, how have you been able to really affect change, go in and support Alzheimer's? What has been your favorite experience so far?
Oh my goodness. Honestly, one of the best experiences that I've had is just being able to reach those who are also caregivers and hear their stories and become connected in our shared journeys. However, I began my advocacy work when I was just 11 years old. I started by reading a report to my 7th grade class about my experience as a caregiver, and I was shocked. There were 6 other students in my class who raised their hands and they said, Alyssa, my loved one has Alzheimer's too. Here we all were just suffering in silence because none of us had ever talked about it before. And that's when I really began the push for my advocacy. I went to a Alzheimer's memory walk with my dad. I introduced myself to every other person that I could, who I could perhaps help and use my skills for. Within a year, I was being filmed by HBO for a documentary called The Alzheimer's Project that followed my family and our experience with Alzheimer's. We won an Emmy a year later. And then from there, everything pretty much catapulted. I was speaking around the country about being a young Alzheimer's activist. I was lending my voice to different publications. And most recently, I just signed on as the celebrity ambassador for an organization called Caring Kind, the heart of Alzheimer's caregiving, where I support other caregivers throughout the country.
Wow. So your journey really has been when you speak up and when you share from authenticity and vulnerability about your situation and your circumstance, which you learned at just 11 years old, that you found you had classmates who were suffering the same situation with family members. And when you are able to share, you're able to find connection in other people and support others.
Exactly. That's one of the things that has been so exciting, that throughout my 15 or so years of advocacy, when I originally started, most people didn't talk about Alzheimer's as much. It was more of something that people kept to their families. They were either ashamed or scared or didn't think that they had resources out there. But what's so exciting is throughout the years, thanks to organizations like Caring Kind and the Alzheimer's Association, they've really gotten the word out there to diminish that stigma. Those who suffer from Alzheimer's in their family, they're not alone. There are so many out there like us. And the fact that we can now come together and realize this is something we can combat is really exciting.
I know you also speak to a lot of teenagers, and you are such a role model for them.
Thank you.
How do you, or what do you say to them to infuse in them and ignite this desire to speak up, to advocate for whatever it is they believe, if it's a nonprofit organization they can support, or, or anti-bullying, or something that they're seeing at school? How do you give them the confidence or share with them possibilities for confidence to be able to speak loudly and clearly and confidently for what they believe?
Sure. I have a little motto that I like to use, and it's educate, empower, and activate. Whenever you have something that's bothering in your life or something that you want to speak out against, first it's about educating others, telling them about why it's important. Then you're empowering them to either join your cause or find something that they're passionate about to also speak up against. And then it's about activating them. You're activating the next generation, you're activating your classroom, you're activating those that you care about to make a difference. Because if we all find something that we are passionate about and use our voices to make a difference, the world would be such a better place to live in.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we come from our hearts and we have a desire to serve others, absolutely.
Exactly.
And you also are doing a lot more besides being Miss World America.
I am
an Alzheimer's activist and advocate. You also work a lot. Tell us
Yes.
about your job.
Yes, throughout this entire time as Miss World America, I've had a very rigorous 9 to 5 job. So when I first was awarded the title, I was working in New York City for one of the world's largest banks, and I was helping run their social media accounts. Since then, I have switched over, and now I'm working also doing social media, but for one of the world's biggest tech companies. So one thing that I love about social media is the ability it has to connect us from all around the world to share a story, whether that story is about, hey, come join our bank or use our tech product, or the story is about, this is what we can do to help others with Alzheimer's, and here's 10 facts that you may not know that might educate you about the disease. Social media is something that is such an incredible part of this new generation that it's fun to utilize both as Miss World America and in my career.
Yeah. And so as you build social media pages for people, does it get tiring? Like, how does that work? Because you're an extrovert, right? And you
Yes.
relationships and connections. And I imagine that running people's social media or companies' social media is an effort that could be lonely by yourself with a computer a lot. How does that continue to support your passion?
One thing that I love with my current main role in social media is that I have a fairly large team that I work with, both the social media team, but also teams throughout my company. So I'm always on Zoom calls. I'm always making friends and learning about people's lives, and we're working together to make some magic happen. So I do have a lot of, experience throughout my job of working with people, which is so nice, because if it was just me behind my own screen, I do think that it would drive me a little bit crazy. I'm very lucky to have the team I have.
That's incredible. Regarding the social media and building it, can you elaborate more on, the most fun of being a social media guru and working with companies? What is, the most exciting thing that happens in a day for somebody like yourself working in social media?
Oh my goodness. I love meeting new people. So, one of the most exciting things is when we have integrations or collaborations with others. So, for my role in tech, that might mean we might be working with another major tech company on a project together, and I get to meet their whole team. Or for some of the other roles that I have where I'm more of a freelancer or contractor, if you will, I get to work with lots of celebrity influencers and big names and help them with their social media profiles, which is always really interesting. However, I think that my favorite product to date, I was working several years ago for Tesla, helping with their social media strategy, and that was during Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico. Tesla worked really hard to revitalize a lot of the energy on the island. And I had the opportunity to be sent to Puerto Rico to document the footage. I grew up speaking Spanish in school. I'm not quite as fluent as I used to be, but I was able to employ a little bit of my Spanish skills to actually interview those affected by the hurricane and hear about how Tesla's new solar panels were helping revitalize their lives and their communities. So being able to interlace that type of philanthropic aspect of my life with my career was really exciting.
Yes, yes. And for students, who are looking to pursue to be of service and find a philanthropic effort, how do you what is your advice to them?
To be involved with philanthropy as your career, for example, you don't need to be a part of a nonprofit specifically. For example, at the large bank I worked for, there was an entire team which just focuses on our philanthropic efforts. And so
Mhm.
you could perhaps join them, or in my social media, I worked with them very heavily to promote what we've been doing in the community on social media. So there's ways you can tie in philanthropy into whatever you do. But if you're looking for a nonprofit organization to work for, or to volunteer for, look online and just start a Google search. So for me, I would search Alzheimer's nonprofits in New York City, see what comes up, see which ones resonate with me. And then from there, all you have to do is send out an email, volunteer your services. They're always looking for volunteers, and they'll be able to utilize your best skills to help make an impact in that organization.
That's so true. Such great advice. When you think of passion and your purpose, what do you think is next for you?
Oh my goodness. Right now, I want to just continue on this path that I'm at right now. As Miss World America, I've had so many incredible opportunities to make even more of an impact with Alzheimer's advocacy. Someday I'd love to own my own nonprofit for Alzheimer's caregivers, specifically children, to give them those resources that I didn't have as a little girl. I work really closely with an organization called the Youth Movement Against Alzheimer's, and we're working on that. But I want to work even with the younger generation, those kids ages 7 to 14 who don't have the resources that they may need. So that's the long-term goal, is to have my own organization someday.
Right. Well, and as a child how it felt. And there were probably times of loneliness because your parents were taking care of grandparents and the grandparents didn't remember your name, etc.
Right.
And it could be a lonely experience, and young kids may not understand why or what that's about. So if they could have a support group of other kids, which is what you found basically in writing your essay at 11 years old.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. There are so many resources out there, but I would love to be able to put my knowledge into a few more if possible.
Right. And touch more lives and see how that
Exactly.
children everywhere.
Exactly.
Love all that you're doing. Love that
Thank
from
you.
such a young age, you just started pursuing your passion and it kept opening doors for you. Truly incredible. I love it. I love your journey, and I love what you stand for, and that you advocate and you teach. You teach
Thank
others.
you.
And again, tell us your motto.
Educate, empower, activate.
Love it. Educate, empower, activate. Well, you have a lovely day doing that.
Thank
And
you.
that everybody will go out there and educate, empower, activate. join nonprofits, and do what they're passionate about to light up their purpose. Thank you, everyone, for watching The Julie Chan Show, where passion meets purpose. And thank you to Alyssa Andrig for being here today, Miss World America.